This is a briefing for funeral directors and honor guard units presented by the DrillMaster in association with TAPS Bugler. This briefing covers the Defense Authorization Act of 2000, military and first responder uniforms, ceremonial training and equipment, standing and marching, color guard, firing party, bugler and piper, casket watch, pallbearers and flag fold, processions and funerals, graveside setups, flag hold techniques and presentations, plainside and dignified transfers, the burial at sea, examples of what not to do, and DrillMaster certifications. The Defense Authorization Act of 2000 required that all veterans receive military funeral honors in one of three categories: full honors, standard honors, and veteran honors. The Army, Marine Corps, and Navy have had designated members assigned to a unit color guard, but would perform as-needed training for the firing party and pallbearers upon notification of a funeral or memorial service. The Air Force has had base-level complete ceremonial teams for decades, with those teams formally coming under the Air Force Honor Guard for uniforms and training in the mid-90s. The Army and Air National Guard programs handle the bulk of funerals in many states for their respective service, with active duty members also being heavily tasked. The Marine Corps and Navy Reserves conduct a majority of their service funerals, and the Coast Guard Ceremonial Honor Guard travels to the country to render honors for their active duty deaths. Veterans working with installation honor guards under the Authorized Provider Partnership Program, or AP3, and separate veteran service organizations are heavily involved with those rendering honors in many areas across the country. The two issues with the veteran-only teams are training and equipment. Most organizations, including law enforcement, work with the Army's Rifle Donation Program to acquire M14s and blank ammunition for rendering the 3-volley salute. Most military teams will arrive and practice in a travel or fallout uniform consisting of the lightweight jacket in place of the ceremonial blouse or service coat. The Army and Air Force also wear the rain cap cover over their service cap. When rehearsal for the ceremony is complete, the team will retire to their transportation or a room in a building to dress, ready for the arrival of the next of kin. While a similar situation might take place for the first responders having a travel uniform, there are three types of uniforms that you may encounter for law enforcement, fire, and EMS honor guard members. You may see the ceremonial uniform, a uniform specifically created for the honor guard, and the Class A uniform, both of which set the honor guard members apart from their co-workers. Lastly would be the Class B uniform, a less formal dress uniform without the blouse, just a long sleeve shirt with a tie for males and possibly a tie tab for females. The Lighthouse Uniform Company created the program Stand, Salute, and Be Saluted to dress all volunteer firefighters in an affordable ceremonial type uniform. The program is represented by the formula on your screen. Each package includes your choice of dress cap, 9/11 commemorative chin strap, cap device, dress shirt, collar pins, and tie. See lighthouseuniform.com for more information. Operation Honor Guard was developed in 2013 as a nonprofit organization with the intent of eventually providing uniforms and equipment for all veteran Honor Guard units across the United States of America. This fundraising program supports over 100 veteran ceremonial teams each year. Ceremonial guardsmen begin at, where else, the beginning. Depending on the service, there are slight differences to what we learned in basic training or boot camp. Those differences begin with standing at attention, ceremonial facing movements without pivots, stand at ease, different saluting techniques, and extend into marching, taking the first step, marching with suspended arm swing, and marching in place. There are various pieces of ceremonial equipment for color guards. For rifles, most often we use replicas of the M1 Garand or M1903. Use of more modern weapons like the M16 or M4 is an option, but they do not present a ceremonial image. Law enforcement agencies sometimes use shotguns for their color guard. The term colors means flags, with or without fringe, mounted on a flagstaff. Fire department honor guard units can use the ceremonial fire axe or pike pole. There are two sequences for the firing party: the ready, aim, fire sequence used by most services and law enforcement, and the red up sequence developed and used by the Air Force. The P at the end of red up gives the command a clear ending to help develop a cadence. The 21-gun salute is only fired by cannons of the Army and Navy, not by rifles. The firing party fires the 3-volley salute over the grave, which is an historic reference to the Revolutionary War. Both sides would cease fire, take the wounded and dead from the battlefield, and, after burying the dead, each side would fire 3 shots into the air, signaling to the other side that they were ready to fight again. The minimum manning for a firing party is 4, 1 to command and 3 to fire. The maximum is 8. For the military firing party, you may see any one of the following weapons: the M14, the ceremonial rifle of choice, the M1 Garand, also a popular rifle, or a more modern rifle like the M16. While it is possible to use to render honors, the 1903 is a bolt-action rifle which creates a bit of difficulty when trying to ceremoniously chamber each blank round. For law enforcement agencies, you may see a ceremonial or modern rifle, shotgun, or even a traditional handgun.
Firing party. Attention! Ready, face. Step out, that's it. Ready. Aim, fire. Aim, fire. Aim, fire. Present arms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Order. Arms. 1, 2, 3.
Firefighters do not usually have a firing party, opting for their traditional bell ceremony. The firing party does not take aim at anything and shoot. They bring the rifle to the shoulder or under the right arm and fire while looking over the front sight. Whether the electronic bugle is used or a live bugler is present, for military funerals, the only authorized call is taps by only one bugler. Echo or silver taps, where 2 buglers play taps one right behind the other, is not authorized. Buglers do not play anything else at any time during the military funeral. Users of the electronic bugle must be aware that taps is not the only programmed call. Many funerals have listened to reveille or another call instead of taps. Here is a sampling of the authorized positions for the military bugler. All military honor guard units have at least one electronic bugle with members trained in how to use it. The preferred method for sounding taps at a military funeral is a live bugler, and there are several organizations that facilitate volunteers for such an occasion. As of the posting of this video, the organizations are the Taps Buglers Taps Across America, Bugles Across America, Operation Taps, and the Youth Trumpet and Taps Corps. Instead of or in addition to the bugler, first responders may have a traditionally dressed bagpiper leading the casket toward the grave with a somber tune. After the service, the tune usually switches to a more energetic tempo in celebration of the life of the fallen one. The staple Amazing Grace may be inserted at some point. Casket watch is a time-honored tradition. There are two types: informal watch, which begins at the incident in duty uniform and continues at the coroner's office and the funeral home, and ceremonial watch, performed at the funeral home, church, or other location in the Class A or ceremonial uniform. Ceremonial watch begins after the casket is placed for viewing and ends only when the casket is ready for transport. The military services do not perform casket watch for veterans. However, the Marine Corps has accomplished it on occasion, and all of the services perform it for the President and others in the rotunda of the nation's capital. First responders do perform casket watch at every opportunity to watch over a fallen brother or sister. The minimum number for casket watch is one honor guard member stationed at or near the head of the casket. The three elements of casket watch, each of which is unarmed, except where law enforcement officers wear a sidearm, are first watch, the formal entrance and placement of the guards, guard change, and final watch, where the guards can be formally retrieved or take the casket out to be placed on transport. Standing watch can be as short as 10 minutes and as long as an hour, depending on how many people have volunteered for the honor. Watch guards should not bow their heads. Everyone is in mourning, and bowing the head does not make that any more real. The position for guards standing watch is either parade rest or ceremonial at ease. With the head bowed, the position is compromised, and the guards lose the ability to effectively communicate with the watch commander and funeral director. Guards also do not exchange salutes with each other. The salute is for the flag and/or the deceased. By tradition, the casket always travels feet first. The only two exceptions to this are a chaplain entering and leaving his chapel, or an impediment on the way to the grave, for example, a tree or headstone. When the American flag drapes the casket, the canton, the blue field, goes at the left shoulder of the deceased. The stripes are always at the feet. When at the graveside or location for rendering final honors, make every effort to have the canton at the family's left as they view the casket after it is placed. Chapter 1 of Title 4 of the United States Code is called the Flag Code. It states that any American may have their casket draped with the American flag. It is, however, usually reserved for members of the military. There is nothing wrong with a first responder, a member of the law enforcement, firefighting, or emergency medical service communities, to have their casket draped with the American flag. For first responders, other flags to consider draping on a casket would be tribal nation, state, county, or city flags, all of which are a good choice for some first responders. Ultimately, it is the family's choice. The long-standing tradition for firefighters is to bear the casket on the hose bed of an apparatus or fire truck. The apparatus then becomes a caisson. There are many different types of apparatus with varying heights of the hose bed. Some trucks need special steps built to help the pallbearers load and unload the casket. Iron the flag before placing it on the casket. An interment flag, commonly called a casket flag, is 6 feet wide and 9.5 feet long. A casket band is not mandatory unless the flag will be exposed to wind without the pallbearers around it. An example of this would be a fire truck being used as a caisson. The funeral director or knowledgeable honor guard member can handle the placement and removal of the casket band. For a half couch or half open casket, fan fold the flag with 3 folds and tuck the white header under as pictured here. Do not lay anything on top of the flag. For a fully couched casket, the completely folded flag is placed centered inside the top half of the lid. A clear plastic rain cover should be ready when anticipating inclement weather. The funeral director should handle the placement and removal of the cover. The military uses 6 pallbearers. They retrieve the casket or cremains and folded flag from the coach or vehicle only at the cemetery. For first responders, 6 or 8 pallbearers can be used. They place and remove the casket or cremains and folded flag from the coach, vehicle, or apparatus at every location from the medical examiner to the cemetery. Cremated remains, or cremains, are usually transported in the back seat of a sedan. The folded flag travels to the urn's right. Pallbearers will go to the back doors of the sedan, one on each side, and retrieve the urn and folded flag. They will then proceed to the location of final honors and place the urn and flag side by side, with the flag to the urn's right. The urn and folded flag do not travel on the casket deck of a hearse. Marching in the U formation may be required when certain pallbearers cannot adequately perform in any other position except the one in which they were trained. Military pallbearers can use this procedure when the casket is in backwards and not just the flag being placed backwards on the casket. If the flag was merely placed backwards on the casket, the funeral director and the honor guard team leader should turn it around before the casket leaves the coach. Coach is the term used for hearse in front of the family. The 2-man flagfold is for first responder teams that do not have the 6-man flagfold down to a science, and for 2-man military veteran funerals. For first responders, the other 4 pallbearers would depart after setting down the casket. Endeavor to have the 2-man flagfold accomplished in front of the family. The 6-man flagfold is accomplished over the casket or urn, also directly in front of the family. A properly folded flag will begin with the canton in the left hand of the bearer at the head of the casket of a 2-man pallbearer team. The pallbearers make 2 horizontal folds and then begin the triangle folds. The first triangle fold is always open end to open end, and for a 2-man team, that means that fold always begins with the left hand. Each service conducts a 6-man flagfold in slightly different ways, but the end result should be either a 1-3-5-2-4, as pictured here, or a 1-3-2-4. The numbers indicate how many stars show on each side of the folded flag. Roman Catholics place a large cloth called a pall on the casket when it enters the church. Remove the flag while in the vestibule and place the pall. Reverse the order when leaving. To remove the flag, have a pallbearer at each end step around to the end, pick up the flag at the corners, and fold it lengthwise twice, just as when folding the flag for presentation. Drape the flag in a pallbearer's arms as shown. That pallbearer then proceeds out of sight of the family and places the flag, still folded twice, on a table or the back of a chair, ensuring it does not touch the ground. Meanwhile, the pall is placed and the 2 pallbearers at each end escort the casket into the church. The main difference between first responder and military funerals is that the first responder honor guard will process with the remains from the funeral home to the chapel and to the gravesite. The military honor guard meets the remains at the cemetery. While each military service has slightly different techniques to folding the flag and executing the firing party 3-volley sequence, all military services adhere to the congressionally mandated active duty, veteran, and retiree funeral standards created in the year 2000. However, the government's budget issues have had a major impact on funding for veteran funerals. For military and law enforcement funerals, all 3 ceremonial elements are used: pallbearers, color guard, and firing party. For firefighters and some EMS personnel, the bell ceremony replaces the firing party. Many first responder funerals have the added last or final call over the communication system, where the dispatcher will attempt to contact the deceased by name or badge number. The last call is also used in some military police, fire, and explosive ordnance disposal memorial services and funerals. There are different options for transporting the casket to the graveside. If the casket and deceased are too heavy, a bier, commonly called a church truck, may be used to assist the pallbearers. Here are examples of different techniques for loading and unloading a hearse, and also a caisson, whether it be the type similar to the one used at Arlington National Cemetery, a fire apparatus, or the tactical caisson of the U.S. Veterans Corps. This is a typical setup for a funeral procession that both the military and first responders can use when on foot. For first responders when in vehicles, it is a good idea to have the color guard and firing party arrive at the gravesite a few minutes prior to the family, so they can set up near the grave or other area to render final honors. When the pallbearers exit their transportation, they should expedite their uniform preparations, move to the area behind the coach or caisson, and form up at parade rest or ceremonial at ease, and wait for the signal from the funeral director. This signal indicates all of the family and friends are gathered to watch the pallbearers transport the casket. The funeral director or an assistant usually stops traffic behind the coach to allow space for removal and movement of the casket or cremains. If a personal color bearer is required, the bearer of that flag should be to the rear of the coach, but far enough away to leave a good amount of space for the pallbearers. The personal color bearer follows the casket and posts near the pre-posted color guard in view of the family at the gravesite. The following graphics are examples of funeral setups at the gravesite. The full honors funeral includes a full complement of each ceremonial element. Modified full honors has the pallbearers perform double duty as firing party members. This category is reserved for Medal of Honor recipients, retired officers, and those who die on active duty. Standard and modified standard honors have the pallbearers and a scaled-down firing party. Both elements are either fully manned or the pallbearers perform double duty. This category does not include a color guard and is for military retirees. Veteran honors funerals are for anyone who honorably served in the U.S. military short of retirement. Two members, preferably from the member's service, fold and present the flag and sound taps. The following matrices show the authorized funeral honors for the U.S. military and suggested funeral honors for first responders. Here are examples of the different flag holding techniques for each service, all of which are perfectly acceptable. When presenting multiple flags to the next of kin, only one flag is folded at the gravesite. The others are pre-folded and held by ceremonial guardsmen off to the side. Always present a folded flag with the longer, flat edge toward the recipient. At the graveside, when the committal service is finished, the funeral director should gently announce, "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the rendering of military honors." For a first responder who is not a military veteran, the announcement would be, "Please rise for the rendering of honors." For military and law enforcement funerals, that announcement is the cue for the firing party to fire the 3 volleys. The bugle call taps is then played, after which the funeral director would announce, "Please be seated." This is when the flag fold with subsequent presentation would take place. The firefighter bell ceremony is after taps, with last call being just before the flag fold. If the honors are modified, where the pallbearers must also perform as members of the firing party, the flag fold would be just before any religious service, and one pallbearer or the commander would stand at the head of the casket or to the right side of the table with the folded flag, while the others march off to assume their positions as members of the firing party and even the bugler. The committal service would take place. All would rise for the firing party and taps, and then all would be seated for the presentation of the flag to the next of kin. If a memorial service will replace the graveside service, all elements will perform their duties with either the colors being posted in the stands or the color guard posting with the colors behind the casket and to the left of the congregation. The firing party would post outside approximately 30 feet or so from the doors of the chapel, and at the appropriate time, the funeral director would open the doors, the firing party would fire, the bugler would sound taps outside, but pointed toward the doors, and the doors would then close. The firing party members could also enter after firing to come to fold and present the flag. When flown, the casket is readied for the flight in the cargo section of the airport. It is boxed in a wood tray and covered with a reinforced cardboard top. The two outer pieces are then secured with metal bands. The casket is transported with the luggage and loaded last into the cargo area of the aircraft. Upon landing at the casket's final destination, the ground crew enters the cargo area of the aircraft and here usually removes the metal bands and cardboard top. The casket is then sent down on a conveyor belt or other means to the awaiting honor guard. Once the casket is at ground level, plainside honors take place. The Pallbearer team moves to the conveyor belt and transfers the casket to an awaiting hearse. As a reminder, cremains are not placed into the back of a hearse, but the back seat of a sedan. Salutes are rendered when the casket or cremains and flag are in motion. Do not salute a stationary casket. The flag is never draped on anything other than a casket or transfer case. In this picture, you see the flag on top of the shipping container, which is not appropriate as the container is not a casket or a transfer case, and the casket most likely already has a flag on it, or the pallbearers are waiting to place the flag. Burial at sea is a long-standing maritime tradition and, just like a committal service on land, there are certain procedures to follow. Navy, Coast Guard, and merchant mariners may request interment or burial at sea, and many law enforcement and fire departments have water-dedicated sections, and burial at sea for those members would be more than appropriate. The ceremonial elements for a land-based funeral and burial at sea are similar, but arranged differently aboard a ship or boat. Because the committal service is on a vessel at sea, standing at attention with your feet together is not necessarily the most stable position. Keeping your feet apart is probably going to be the better technique to maintain stability. The deceased or family makes arrangements for using a casket, urn, or sea shroud. If a metal or wood casket is used, weights are added and large holes drilled to help it sink quickly. If the casket does not readily sink, the casket must be retrieved, weight and or holes added, and the casket sent into the water again. Due to environmental concerns, placing a plastic urn into the water is not accomplished anymore. Metal, ceramic, and biodegradable urns are preferable choices. An alternative to placing the urn in the water is to open it and pour the cremains into the water. This picture shows a mass burial at sea during World War II. A burial shroud can be sail material or this shroud that is specifically made for sea burials and yet is appropriate for viewing the deceased in the funeral home. It is the Atlantic and Pacific Sea Burial Shroud and is pre-weighted with cannonballs in a separate compartment at the bottom. The firing party fires the 3-volley salute out over the water without taking aim. The DrillMaster offers education, training, and certification as a United States ceremonial guardsman for Honor Guard members across the country. Military veteran groups, law enforcement, firefighters, emergency medical service, park rangers, and TSA ceremonial teams benefit from training in the 3 ceremonial elements. Also on offer is certification as an instructor at the local or national level in ceremonial, regulation, and exhibition drill, plus training and certification as a judge for military drill. For more information, visit thedrillmaster.org or contact DrillMaster Training on Facebook, Instagram, and Google+.